Sickle cell anemia, an inherited form of anemia, a condition in which there are not enough healthy red blood cells to carry adequate oxygen throughout the body. This is according to medical experts. The red blood cells are flexible and round, moving easily through the blood vessels, but in sickle cell anemia, the red blood cells become rigid and sticky and are shaped like crescent moons. These irregularly shaped cells can get stuck in small blood vessels, which can slow or block blood flow and oxygen to parts of the body. Medical experts say there's no cure for most people with sickle cell anemia, but treatments can relieve pain and help prevent problems associated with the disease. Signs and symptoms of sickle cell anemia vary from person to person and changes over time, and this includes anemia. Sickle cells break apart easily and die, leaving the carrier without enough red blood cells. Red blood cells usually live for about 120 days before they need to be replaced, but sickle cells usually die in 10 to 20 days, leaving a shortage of red blood cells. Episodes of pain. This is a periodic episode of pain called crisis. It is a major symptom of sickle cell anemia. Pain develops when sickle-shaped red blood cells block blood flow through tiny blood vessels to their chest, abdomen, and joints. Pain can also occur in the bones. Experts say the pain varies in intensity and can last for a few hours to a few weeks. Some people have only a few pain episodes, others more crises a year. Painful swelling in hands and feet. The swelling is caused by sickle-shaped red blood cells blocking blood flow to the hands and feet. Frequent infections. Sickle cells can damage an organ that fights infection, leaving the sufferer more vulnerable to infections. Doctors commonly give infants and children with sickle cell anemia vaccinations and antibiotics to prevent potentially life-threatening infections such as pneumonia. Delayed growth. Red blood cells provide the body with the oxygen and nutrients they need for growth. A shortage of healthy red blood cells can slow growth in infants and children and delay puberty in teenagers. Vision problems. Tiny blood vessels that supply the eyes may become plugged with sickle cells. This can damage the retina, the portion of the eye that processes visual images, leading to vision problems. According to statistics, Africa has 70% of the world's annual figure of 300,000 affected new births. In Nigeria, the prevalence of sickle cell trait is about 25%, while the homozygous state is found in about 3% of the population. Nigeria has the largest population of people with sickle cell disorder, with about 150,000 births annually. About 40% of Nigeria's population are carriers of the sickle cell trait, which means they do not have the disease, but when two carriers get married, they have a 1 in 4 chance of giving birth to a child with the disorder, which comes with different manifestations such as pain, leg ulcers, and stroke.
Common conditions that children with sickle cell will have. We have what we call acute, those are the short-term problems, and then we have the chronic problems. So the acute problems are the one we call the crises. So the common one is bone pain crisis, where they have pains all over the body, and that's the one that is the commonest cause of presentations in hospitals, generally all over the world. Of the vaso-occlusive crisis, which one of it is bone pain, the one that gives us a lot of concern, which is the commonest cause of death amongst them, is stroke. And stroke is a big problem. Historically, it used to be a very huge problem, both in the West and in the low-resource settings all over the globe. But what has happened is that there's a special ultrasound scan called the transcranial Doppler. So the transcranial Doppler enables us to view the blood vessels in the brain and tells us the ones that are at risk of having a stroke. So then we can prevent it. Now, the prevention modalities are two. One is that we can do exchange blood transfusions, where we'll take out the blood from the sickle child and give him fresh hemoglobin AA blood. We try to do it in Lagos. We do every 28 days for 6 months. In other parts of the world, they will tell you to do it for 1 year. But we have problems with getting blood donors, screening blood, and all. So we try to make do with what we have. The other thing you can do is to give hydroxyurea. So hydroxyurea is a disease-modifying medication. Once we see those who are at risk of stroke, so there are 2 types. There's one we call conditional, then there's high risk. Whichever one, we will start them with hydroxyurea. But those who have high risk, we will exchange their blood. And then there are other problems. They can have infections, they can break down their red blood cells, and they will need to have blood transfusions. They can have problems with the kidney, which we call sickle cell nephropathy, and then we'll need the nephrologist to assist us with it. And then they also have problems with their hip joints, or sometimes the shoulder joint, where the capsule will wear off. And so they would need to have a replacement of that joint. Now, that won't be done until they attain until they are 18, when we know they are not growing much again. So that's, those are basically the common things we see in the environment for children with sickle cell anemia.
I think it's time we took charge of our own lives. New therapies are coming along. Old therapies are available, but in order to improve the survival of our patients with sickle cell disease, this starts initially with a proper diagnosis. So we need to make sure every child who's born with a high prevalence is properly diagnosed.
So far, the most permanent cure for sickle cell disease is a bone marrow transplant, which has had great results, especially in children.
Typically, it's for patients who have the most severe disease that the present conventional therapies is ineffective. As an example, if somebody has sickle cell disease and you're already using hydroxyurea, or you're getting blood transfusion but you're still getting strokes, those are the children or individuals that need, that may be considered for bone marrow transplant. Of course, it's very expensive abroad, so you really want to do it in a way that it can be locally affordable, like it's being done in India or Pakistan or in other Asian countries. I think it's high time we did our own.
The little memory I have from before me having sickle cell was pains, but now it's just my life has been pain-free since the transplant. I would have chest pains, leg pains, different body pains, but now I hardly see pain except from small injuries. I hardly feel pains again.
Mohammed was only 8 years old when he had a bone marrow transplant as soon as the family found out that their first son had sickle cell disorder. They resolved to get a transplant.
You know, being my firstborn, I don't know what was really happening. We'll go to the hospital, normal malaria drugs they will give us. But when the thing was, and the temperature would be so hot, they would just say I should put cloths in the water, be rubbing on him. When I found out this thing is becoming too much, I just said, let me check, do the genotype and the blood group. Even went out with my sister, kid sister. I just called them. When my husband came with the results, I saw the result. I said, Jesus, sickle cell. I now sent for his sister went with him. I just called them on phone. Please bring my son for me. I started crying for like, I don't know. I don't know what to even think that time. I called my elder sister. She said I should come to Abuja. I went to her, we talked. Before I now went to Navy Hospital to join the sickle cell club. But it got to a time, it was not functioning. They now directed me to this place. So even the bone marrow transplant, I thought it's something that is easy, sha. Before they now told me that we need a donor. We need a donor. It's either the sibling or the mother donor, but that preferably the sibling. So when I told my elder sister, she said, please just leave only that one. How would they operate 2 children at the same time? Because we thought it's a very big thing, sha. The operation, as in the transplant, is a big thing. But when I came here, they explained to me that I should not worry. That I can even go to the net and see the procedure, which I did. I don't tell people in my office that during those periods, what are they calling savings? But if I did not tell people that it's a sickle cell, they will not know, because we spent money on him. Is it food, fruits, everything they say we should do, drugs, we give him like that. I said, I don't have savings because we need to take care of him. So when we were to travel, we were to raise money, that one was another problem. But I thank God we were able to raise the money, travel to Italy, Rome. The transplant, the sister, before then, we were looking for the donor. So all of us had to, we went through tests. They collected a sample and sent it to Rome. It was the younger sister, 100%, no difference.
He was 4. So I had the sister before we discovered that he was sickle cell. So when we came to the sickle cell center on counseling, we were counseled by some of the doctors that attended to us, and I actually told them that I was going to have more children. Then coupled with the advice we received from the doctors here that we need a donor that can match. So we opted to have another child. Since we already had the sister, so we decided to have a second child that is after him. And that is how we came about the last boy.
After the procedure, little Mohammed had to take all his childhood immunizations again. The changes in his body had wiped all traces of the old vaccinations. Now 13, Mohammed is just like any other child, and his genotype reads AS. But in his DNA is the SS gene, a fact he must consider in the future if he plans to marry and have children. But now, there's hope that in the near future, Nigerians will not have to travel for a transplant.
The disease-modifying medications can assist us in improving the quality of life of these children. However, there is a cure for sickle cell disease, and that cure is bone marrow transplant. So it involves some procedures and then both like a washout period and a wait period. So what is done is you use cancer medications and irradiation. You destroy the bone marrow that is in the patient or the child with sickle cell anemia. Then you get a donor. You want preferably a donor that is correctly matched with the person who's got sickle cell. So preferably we will go for siblings, cousins, and all. Sometimes if the disease is the burden is quite heavy on the child and on the parents, you may use either of the parents. That's called a haploidentical transplant. So you get the donor, the person with sickle cell is the recipient, you use the cancer drugs and or radiation, you destroy the bone marrow, then you harvest bone marrow from the donor. So we take the donor to a theater, we take out bone marrow, and then we infuse it. It's like a blood transfusion. You just infuse the bone marrow into the person you've already destroyed their own marrow with cancer cells. So the essence of that is that you want the recipient to recognize this foreign bone marrow as their own. So you give them drugs. We call them immunosuppressive drugs. The commonest we use is called cyclosporine. There are so many other ones that you may add, tacrolimus, sirolimus, and all. Now, those drugs will continue to suppress the body of the recipient so that he thinks that the bone marrow he has received is his own and not a foreign one. All of this is to prevent what we call graft versus host disease. The graft is coming from the donor. The host is the recipient, because the host will reject anything that is foreign. So we give those drugs. Now, there's a partnership, a synergy between the University of Lagos, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and the Sickle Cell Foundation to start a bone marrow transplant unit in Nigeria. It promises to be a standard unit where you can get what is almost like what you get if you leave the shores of Nigeria. I mean, we're talking about the West now. We're modeling after hospitals in the US. The program is working in tandem with Vanderbilt University. So they are the consultants to the program. The unit is ready. So there's something we call positive flow oxygen system. where oxygen goes in one direction, because a stem cell transplant unit must have that. You don't want dirty air to be recycled all over the place. So you must suck out dirty air and bring in clean air. That is being installed. Equipments have been purchased. Staff currently are being trained. I have done training in transplant since 2016. Other people have also been trained. And we're ready. We have those who want to receive the marrow. We're screening donors. We're trying to develop our donor registry. Medications are being procured. And interestingly, what was going to be a problem for us, because one of the protocols is that you would use total body irradiation for the recipient. As if everything was working for the program, the federal government just installed the new center in Luth. That's the NSI Cancer Center. And that's the only unit in this part of sub-Saharan Africa that can give total body irradiation. So we're set. We'll give TBIs as is done abroad. We'll give the chemotherapy. We'll give them the graft, and we'll watch them.
Residents of Makoko in Yaba Local Council Development Area of Lagos besieged the newly built primary health care center. There are free tests for malaria, blood pressure, and other ailments. But the major objective is to educate the people about sickle cell anemia in their local language and English.
It is what you can give it to your child if you marry somebody that has it too.
A simple blood test like this can reveal a carrier of one or two detective genes. All this information and more in pamphlets written in English, colloquial English, and Yoruba is presented to the executive chairman of Yaba Local Council Development Area for onward transmission to members of the community.
The program is to inform and educate the people about their general health, most especially genotype status for most of us as blacks and as Nigerians. So our hope is that for the people that have come here today, they will be well informed and well educated about, first of all, taking care of their health, and then people that need to check their genotype and know their status, in order to be able to know how to take care of themselves, will be able to get that information properly and take the right steps.
This is not the first drive we're having. This is actually the first urban drive. It's an urban local government. It's a local government, LTDA, local council, Yaba local council. Okay, others have been Badagry, that's rural. Ekpe, that's also considered rural, and a couple of others. Ibajuleki is also considered rural. But we are going to continue doing this until we cover all of Lagos State. We deliberately went out to ask in those other LGS where we've worked, and is this through the schools. We read what we call a before and after, a pre-test and a post-test among the school children. And then when we got to the schools, we found that they've set up sickle cell clubs. This is both in Badagry and Ekpe, and that was heartwarming. And then we're seeing a lot more people coming into our center, being referred from the communities where we have been. So this is an indication that the work we've done is yielding fruit.
In Delta State, South Nigeria, the narrative is changing as 05 Initiative, spearheaded by the wife of the governor of Delta State, begins the establishment of sickle cell centers in the various hospitals across the state, and now at the new General Hospital Asaba, set for commissioning.
From the 1st of June 2015,
the commissioning of the center witnesses a large turnout of people.
Nothing compares to the joy of being an instrument in the hand of God to change another person's story for good.
One of us continue to talk about the need to change the world and the need to impact the life of one person at a time. For those who have a lot, you can impact on many more persons. Therefore, those who have just a little, impact on the life of the other. I believe that there will be a lot for us to achieve.
Wives of the governor of Edo State and her Akwa Ibom state counterpart, Mrs. Bessie Obasaki and Mrs. Martha Udom, accompanied by other guests, formally commissioned the center.
The Sickle Cell Center, to the glory of God,
In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.
Experts speak on the importance of awareness and the need to gradually phase off the trend. With the commissioning of this fully equipped center, it brings to 13 the total number of sickle cell centers established and donated to the Delta State government by the 05 initiative as at 1st of June 2019. Along Nanka Ekulobia Road, Nanka, Aguata local government area of Anambra State, a two-story building stands with several business outlets at the frontage. This building is very important to the Association of People Living with Sickle Cell Anemia. It's not just an abode for some of them, it also houses the Skills Acquisition Center, specially designed for them to make a living. Some of these tasks are not too tedious for them, but they are still challenged with pains, especially ulcer.
I'm actually living with sickle cell disorder. I'm going to be 40 years old this year. I came into the society, or I found myself in a society which I perceived that there is this non-inclusiveness of people living with sickle cell anemia, probably because of the kind of nature that they have, or the coloration that is surrounding the circumstances, that led to their birth. I decided to set up this organization. Every person that is a member of this organization must be living with sickle cell anemia, whether you are educated or you are not educated. This scourge or this anemia has caused a lot of challenges to the people living with sickle cell anemia. Of course, it ranges from both psychological, mental, physical, academically. Unfortunately, those living with sickle cell anemia are not that physically endowed when you come to physically demand task. But God augmented it with our academic and probably emotional aspect of it. God endowed us academically and intellectually, so we're sound.
Aisha speaks on other human-induced challenges those living with sickle cell anemia have had to contend with, to include drug and physical abuse, health experts cashing in on their circumstance to cause more harm, and the lack of welfare, among others.
Living with sickle cell anemia. Some of us, we get to a stage where we get tired of living, because even the parents that gave birth to us are ashamed to speak up, to stand in for us. In a society where there are meetings like Mother's Day celebration, you see some of our mothers, they go to the prisons to feed these people that they committed one crime or the other. They are fed well, they are appreciated, but we are already in prison in some of our homes, not all. There are people that have children living with sickle cell anemia. The affluence in Nigeria, at least I have good records of good number of our legislators, governors, ex-presidents that have children living with sickle cell anemia. It's only when these children die that you see some of them, they will now come up and say, oh, I want to set up a foundation for my child that died with sickle cell anemia. Why did you not do that when the child was alive?
Some of the patients share disheartening experience of rejection, loneliness, pain in coping with sickle cell crisis.
As I am, is a terrible experience. It's a very, very terrible experience. One with sickle cell disorder cannot do anything that other people do. As a sickler, they will ban you from doing some certain things so that you will not break down. Because anything you do, you will break down. And breaking down, having crisis as a sickler, the amount of money you will spend in the hospital is not something you will talk about. It's too much. It's out of hand. The thing is too much, and the government is not doing anything about it.
I don't have any, in my paternal, my father's side, no one helps me. Unless if I go to the people that bought our lands, some do help me out in buying in my hospital bills or buying my food stuff sometimes. I don't have anybody to help me, but my maternal side,
they do try on their own to help me out.
When I run to my daddy's brother, he will now start telling me that I'm an adopted child, that I don't have anything to do with the family, that I should not ask him for anything. So, but I thank God for Mommy Aisha, who took me up since in the hospital. They billed me 1.something million. She's the one that gathered the people that paid it for me. I thank God for her.
In one way or the other.
A motion presented by Chukwuma Ezeani, a member representing Anocha 2 constituency in the Anambra State House of Assembly, calls for the passage of the sickle cell law so as to give relief and freedom to persons living with the disorder. The House gave an accelerated hearing on the matter, and on April 30 this year, the bill was passed into law. Anambra is the first state to pass the sickle cell law to protect the rights of those living with sickle cell anemia. The bill is, however, still awaiting the governor's assent.